Welcome to episode 11 of the Hero's Journey podcast. Fun little project I've got going on. I've read some comics again this week. I'm ready to show you exactly what I've been up to. Now, again, for those just tuning in, we've completed the page reduction project. So most of the comics I'm reading now are about 60 pages or so. Some are, in the 90s. That's just some special type of issues that have more pages to them. These are really thick monsters. So now we should be reading them mostly in order of the month and year that they were issued. All right, so I'm going to start sharing the screen so you can see exactly what's going on. Okay, first up, we've got Action Comics number 61. We're a DC comic, June 1943. I read the Superman story. This is a really impressive cover. A lot going on. I believe this issue is well sought after because of the cover more than anything else. In this issue, Clark tries to convince Lois that he's Superman. So, I mean, it's not specifically a reveal, but he's really trying to convince her that he's Superman. That's not working out. And the other story I read in that issue was the Zatara story where someone learns Zatara's secret to his magic. There's been the most recent CGC sale that I could find was a 3.5 sale of $710 from July of 2020. So it's I think it's a well sought out issue, and I think you pay a bit of a premium if you want this in pretty much any grade. All right, and then we have Adventure Comics number 86. Also from DC, also from June 1943. In this issue, I read the Sandman and Starman stories. You can see Sandy and West Dodd's Sandman on the cover. Looks like they're trying to shoot down some bad guys. Most recent CGC sale I could find was for $780 from May of 2019. So, I mean, just to compare this issue to the Action Comics 61 that I read, I was talking about prior. It's a 7.5, $780. I mean, it was, a good year and a half ago, about a year and a half ago that this came out, or that sale happened. But I mean, the other 3.5 was about $710 from this year. So 3.5 going for a similar price point as a 7.5. Really, that just goes to show how well sought after that other issue is and how much of a premium it commands. All right, All-Star Comics number 17. It's a DC from June 1943 as well. You have an appearance of Brainwave, who's the bad guy in this issue. It's a fun cover. Got Brainwave on there, bad guy. The Justice Society of America appears in the issue, and they're all sort of running away on the cover as well. They all get shrunken down in the issue. You have Atom, Dr. Fate, Dr. Midnight, Hawkman, Johnny Thunder, Sandman, Spectre, Starman, Wonder Woman. Now, most of the characters that I've just listed get their own story, essentially, or own segment of the overall story in the issue, except Wonder Woman. She's the secretary for the Justice Society of America, so she doesn't really have a fairly big role at this point, unfortunately. Anyway, most recent CGC sale I could find was a 5.0 for $720 from August of this year, 2020. Next up, we have All Winners Comics, number 9. Now, I'm calling this a Marvel. I know that in this time, there were Timely, Atlas, there were a whole bunch of other titles that these characters fell under. I'm just going to call them Marvel. Really want to find out who actually published it at that time, you can look it up. It was June 1943. Calling it the summer issue, but it was released in June. You have an Alex Schomburg cover here, which I always find the Alex Schomburg covers pretty entertaining. There's always a lot going on. All these covers, usually a lot of action, a lot of characters and heroes doing some great stuff. taking on some bad guys. So in this issue, I read the Human Torch story, Captain America story, Submariner story, and the Wizard stories. And all of these stories in the issue have the Nazis as villains. Most recent sale I could find was a 3.0 for $1,531 from September of 2020. So just this month that we're in right now, $1,531 for a 3.0. That is definitely a big number. I would say that the Alex Schomburg cover is the big draw for this one. Like I said, a lot going on. Very attractive cover. Looks great. You have Nazis on the cover as well. That's also tends to be another big draw. Here's another fun issue. Batman 17 from the original series. It's DC, June 1943 again. Very neat cover. Obviously very patriotic cover where you got Batman and Robin riding an eagle and trying to get you to buy war bonds and stamps. This issue contains 4 Batman stories. You have a Penguin appearance, and in that story, in one of the stories, Penguin appears, and Penguin turns from using his umbrellas to being more of a sportsman because the umbrellas were becoming too predictable. And his umbrellas were a signature. Anyway, the most recent CGC sale I could find was a 9.0 for $6,600 from September of 2020. So again, just this month, $6,600 9.0. And I'm always impressed when you have a comic book that's almost 80 years old as of right now, that is in such great shape that you actually have a 9.0. Like, was it even read? I'm looking at the comic books I had when I was a kid, and they were just beat up. I mean, spine creases were the least of the concerns from when I started collecting. So for someone to hang on, for something to have survived so long in such great shape is impressive. Very impressive. Anyway, well thought out cover. It's also a black cover. I really can't imagine that this is an easy cover to find in high grade. Next up, we have Blue Beetle, number 22. This was being published by Hollyoak at the time, June 1943. In this issue, there are 2 Blue Beetle stories. Blue Beetle's back on the cover after a hiatus. So the Blue Beetle, Dan Garrett, quits the police department to join the U.S. intelligence service. So I guess he's making a career change. I don't know how much of a spec play that is, and if people really care about changes in the personal lives of the characters. But this is the kind of things that I like to bring attention to. Is kind of what the hero's journey project is about, where the characters are evolving, changing, moving on to different things. It's not just the same old thing. You dress up, fight bad guys, move on. There's actually a bit of a subplot or, more minor stories going on. So this issue had a recent CGC sale of $580. Sorry, it's 6.5, CGC 6.5 sale, $580 from March of 2020. Now this is Comic Cavalcade, issue number 3. It's from DC, June 1943. This is one of those monster issues I was talking about where it's 92 pages. Now, previous issues were 100 pages. This is where the page reduction started. So they didn't change the price of the comic. You're getting, 92 pages of comic book for 15 cents. And, if you've seen one of these in person, yeah, I mean, it's worth seeing one of these in person just to see how thick it is. Like, it's a book. It's almost 3 times as thick as the comics that you see today. So very, again, very impressive that something like this that big would survive and someone would have taken care of it. So in this issue, I read the Wonder Woman story, Sargon the Sorcerer, Green Lantern, and the Flash. Interesting cover, really fun. The most recent CGC sale I could find was 6.0. It's about $492 from August of 2020. So this is a fun cover again. Batman in Detective Comics number 76, Batman story, Batman and Robin, DC June 1943, a Joker cover and story appearance. In this issue, I read the Batman story and Crimson Avenger stories. And I would say this is a pretty popular cover, as the most recent CGC sale I could find was 1.5, about $550 from August of 2020. So $550 for 1.5 that's a big number. But I'd love to have that cover. That's such a great issue, a great Joker cover. Next up, we have Flash Comics number 42, DC June 1943. In this issue, we have Flash, Johnny Thunder. It seems this is the first appearance of Johnny's Thunderbolt's parents. So he has the bolt of lightning that helps Johnny Thunder out. Apparently has parents, and they are also bolts of lightning. As far as I can tell, this is their only appearance. Take that for what it is. And also, I read the Hawkman story in this issue. Recent CGC sale, 4.5, sold for $316. That was back in March of 2019. Okay, the last comic I read just happens to be quite interesting. It's Human Torch number 12, Marvel, June 1943. This is another Alex Schomburg cover. Now, I'm going to tell you, this seems to be really sought after. The cover is again Alex Schomburg, so lots of action going on the cover. You got a bondage thing going on here, and this is definitely a pre-code issue where right on the cover, the Human Torch is punching a guy in the arm, and his arm is just disintegrating. And if you look closely, you can just see like the skin muscle tissue, it's all gone off his arm. It's just a bone. He's just punching away with his flame. Like it's a little gory, it's a little gruesome. Now, it's not the kind of thing you see on the inside of these issues, but it is on the cover. And that does seem to command a premium these days. And I'll get into it, but so the most recent CGC sale I could find was at $18,000 for an 8.5 from July of 2020. That's a huge number for something that's not specifically a key. You're really just looking at the cover of this story. I mean, there was also another CGC sale as a 1.5 in July of 2020 as well, and it sold for $1,800. So $1,800 for a 1.5. So a comic that's in terribly rough shape. But people are throwing serious money at this, and they really want to have a copy. So in this comic, the whole thing it's comprised of 2 Human Torch stories and a Submariner story. And what's interesting, the cover, as you see, it's all Japanese soldiers on the cover, but all the stories inside have the heroes fighting against Nazis, like German Nazis. So, and to be frank, if this had Nazis on the cover, it probably command even more money. It'd just be that one extra element to just put it in the stratosphere. And an interesting panel that I found in this issue is this one here. So in that issue, in the Human Torch number 12, Toro actually throws a flaming swastika at some of the bad guys, at some of the Nazis that are in the issue. So I just thought that was interesting. Usually they're not throwing flames that are in any kind of shape, but to throw it in the shape of a swastika just seemed to stand out for me as something fairly interesting. So that's what I've read this week. A lot of DC, a lot of Marvel, Blue Beetle issue. Some very interesting things going on. Alex Schomburg, clearly a busy guy at this time. 2 of the covers I was reading about just from that 1 month were his, and they're just so detailed that he must have spent a lot of time on these covers, but it shows that his fans respect his art because these covers are well sought after. Anyway, thank you again for joining in. Appreciate your time. Appreciate you watching this far. Thanks for following me on the journey. Thanks and take care.